My ex wants to get coffee and catch up. You're not invited, she informed me. Understood, I said. Got the ring deposit back while she was gone. When she came home, I was packed. How was coffee? Good. Why are you? We're done. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The Saturday morning sun cut a bright line across our wooden floor, catching dust motes dancing in the air. It was our kind of morning, lazy and quiet. The scent of the coffee I'd brewed hung in the apartment, a familiar, comforting smell. I was scrolling through news on my phone, my feet propped on the ottoman, feeling the simple, uncomplicated peace of a day with no plans. Qley, however, was moving with a purpose that felt out of place. I watched her over the top of my screen. She was at the full-length mirror by the door, not in her usual weekend uniform of leggings and an old t-shirt of mine, but in a dark, fitted dress. She'd done her makeup, the kind that took time, the subtle smoky eye, the precise lip liner. This wasn't for brunch with her girlfriends. That look was louder, more glittery. This was something else. You look nice, I said, putting my phone down. Big plans. She didn't turn from the mirror, instead critiquing the line of her dress. Yeah, just meeting someone for coffee. The casual tone was a little too forced. A tiny alarm bell, soft but persistent, started ringing in the back of my mind. I kept my voice light, easy. Oh, cool. Who with? She finally turned, but her eyes were on her phone, her thumbs tapping out a message. A small, almost imperceptible smile played on her freshly lined lips. My ex Jason. He's in town. The words landed, but they didn't fully compute at first. Jason, the one from before me. The one with the trust fund and the condescending smirk in all his pictures. The one she'd told me was toxic and obsessed with appearances. My stomach tightened. Jason, I repeated, the name feeling foreign and unpleasant in my mouth. Okay, so we're meeting him. This was the moment. This was where she was supposed to say, yeah, for like an hour. Just be cool, okay? This was where I would have grumbled, but gone along, because that's what you do. You show a united front. But she didn't say that. She looked up from her phone, and her gaze was steady, devoid of any apology or request. It was a statement, a declaration. There was a flicker in her eyes, not guilt, but something closer to superiority, like she was privy to a secret I was too dull to understand. We're just going to catch up, she said, her voice cool and clear. A pause, deliberately held for maximum impact. Then, the knife, twisted with a casual, dismissive precision. You're not invited. The air left the room. The coffee scent turned acrid. The sunny, peaceful morning shattered into a million sharp, glittering pieces. You're not invited. The words echoed in the silence of my head. This wasn't about coffee. This wasn't about catching up with an old flame. This was a power play. It was a deliberate, cruel drawing of a line. I am going to a place you cannot follow. I am prioritizing a connection with my past over my present with you. And I am explicitly telling you that you are excluded. I felt the weight in the front pocket of my jeans then. The crumpled receipt from the jeweler. I'd picked up the custom-designed ring yesterday. The plan was to surprise her tonight, to cook her favorite meal, to get down on one knee right here in this patch of sunlight. The deposit had been massive, a sum I'd saved for 6 months. The ring was finished. It was waiting for me. It was supposed to be the start of everything. And she was telling me I wasn't invited to her life. I saw the future in that single, heartbeats-long moment. The arguments. The you're controlling accusations if I objected. The simmering resentment if I said nothing. The slow, painful death of my self-respect as I accepted this new, diminished role in her world. The alarm bell in my mind wasn't ringing anymore. It was a single, clear, resonant tone. A tone of absolute, unshakable clarity. I looked at her, at the woman I was ready to build a life with, and I saw a stranger. The emotion, the hurt, the anger, the betrayal, was a storm raging inside me, but I built a wall of ice around it. I let none of it show. Not a flicker. My voice, when it came out, was calm. Flat. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a plea. It was an acceptance of terms. Understood, I said. She looked almost disappointed for a second, as if she'd been prepared for a fight and I'd handed her a white flag. She gave a slight, dismissive nod, grabbed her purse, and walked out the door. The click of the latch was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I stood there, in the quiet, sun-drenched apartment, the ghost of her perfume hanging in the air, and the receipt for a future that would never happen burning a hole in my pocket. The time for confusion was over. The time for action had begun. The word hung in the air after the door clicked shut. Understood. It wasn't just a word. It was a key turning in a lock. The lock on the box where I kept all my love for her, all my plans, all my patience. I turned that key, sealed it shut, and the storm of emotion inside me, the hurt, the blinding rage, the sickening feeling of betrayal, was instantly muted. It was still there, a roiling thunderhead, but it was now contained, distant. The energy it generated was no longer chaotic. It was transformed into a cold, focused current. I moved. My first action wasn't frantic. It was deliberate. I pulled my wallet from my back pocket and extracted the receipt. It was creased from a day of carrying it around, a tangible secret. The jeweler's elegant logo was embossed at the top. Below it, the description, 14K white gold, 1.2 CT custom solitaire with pave band. And the number, the staggering number I'd worked overtime for months to save. I dialed the number printed on the receipt. My hand was steady. My voice, when the receptionist answered, was unervingly calm. Yes, hello? My name is Mark Evans. I have an order for a ring. Pickup was scheduled for today. I gave her the order number. I need to cancel the order and process a refund of my deposit to my original card. Oh, the woman on the other end sounded surprised, a little flustered. I'm so sorry to hear that, sir. Is everything all right? The engagement is off. I stated, my tone flat, factual. I offered no further explanation. There was no crack in my voice, no performative sadness. I was closing a business transaction that was no longer profitable. I see. Of course, sir. I'll process that for you right now. The refund may take 3 to 5 business days to appear. Thank you, I said, and ended the call. I placed the receipt on the kitchen counter, right in the center, a monument to a canceled future. Then, I walked to the bedroom and pulled my largest suitcase and a set of moving boxes from the top of the closet, the ones I'd kept from my last move. I worked with an efficient, detached rhythm. This wasn't a heartbroken man packing. This was a strategist executing an extraction. I started with my clothes. My side of the closet. My drawers. I didn't look at her things. I didn't pause to smell a sweater of hers or look at the photos on the dresser. Those were relics from a country I had been forcibly deported from. They held no power over me anymore. I took only what was unequivocally mine. The books on my nightstand. My laptop, my charger. The high-quality headphones I bought myself for my birthday. I left the TV we'd bought together, the kitchenware we'd accumulated as a couple, the throw pillows she'd insisted on. They were part of the life I was leaving, artifacts of a shared history that had just been proven a lie. They were ballast, and I was cutting it all loose. Each item placed into a box was a weight lifted. The suitcase held my essentials. The boxes held the rest of my former life. I carried them down to my car, load by load, filling the trunk and the back seat. The physical exertion felt good, cleansing. It was a purge. When the last box was in the car, I did a final walkthrough. The apartment already felt different. It wasn't our home anymore. It was her apartment, and it felt emptier, smaller. I stood in the living room, the same patch of sun now highlighting the faint indentations in the rug where my furniture had been. I was done. There was nothing left of me here. I grabbed my car keys and the single box of final items, my toothbrush, my razor, the few toiletries from the bathroom. I didn't look back. I walked out the door, down the stairs, into my car. I didn't drive away immediately. I sat in the driver's seat, the engine off, and pulled out my phone. I went to her contact, a picture of her laughing, the one I'd taken on a trip to the coast. I looked at it for one last, long second. Then I tapped the screen a few times. Block this caller. A confirmation pop-up appeared. Are you sure you want to block this contact? I was sure. I tapped block contact. Then, and only then, did I start the car. I didn't have a destination, not yet. A hotel for the night. Then, tomorrow, I'd find a new place. A fresh start. But for now, the only thing that mattered was that I was moving forward, away from her. The rearview mirror was just glass. I had nothing left to look for in it. I didn't have to wait long. I was leaning against my car door, the evening air cool against my skin, when her sedan pulled into a spot a few cars down. The streetlights had just flickered on, casting the scene in a pale, orange glow. I watched her get out, a slight, unsteady sway in her step. She'd had more than coffee. She was humming something to herself, a small, satisfied smile on her face as she rummaged in her purse for her keys. She didn't see me at first. She was still in the bubble of her afternoon, the bubble from which I had been explicitly excluded. I pushed off from the car and took a few steps into the light pooling between the vehicles. The sound of my shoes on the pavement made her look up. The smile vanished, replaced by a startled confusion as her eyes landed on me, then darted to the packed interior of my car visible through the windows. "Mark? What's with the box?" she asked, her voice tinged with a slow dawning alarm. She gestured weakly at the final cardboard box I held in my arms. I didn't answer her question. Instead, I kept my voice utterly level, a stark contrast to her building unease. "How was coffee?" The question threw her. It was so normal, so mundane, and it hung in the space between us, utterly at odds with the visual evidence of my departure. "It was," she started, her brow furrowed, defensive gears already turning. "It was good? Why are you?" "We're done." The 3 words cut through her sentence cleanly, without malice or heat. They were simply a statement of fact, delivered with the finality of a judge's gavel. For a second, there was only silence. Then, the unraveling began. "What?" The word was a sharp, disbelieving laugh. "You're breaking up with me because I had coffee with an ex? That's insane." I remained silent, my expression unchanging. My calmness was a fuel to her fire. "It was just coffee," she insisted, her voice rising in pitch. "You're being so sensitive, so controlling. I told you about it, didn't I? I was honest. You were dismissive." I corrected her, my tone still calm. "There's a difference." "Oh my God," she scoffed, throwing her hands up. "So I worded it poorly. You're really going to throw away our entire future, our engagement, over a poorly worded sentence." The mention of the engagement was my cue. I didn't need to say a word. I just looked at her, letting the silence and the packed car speak for me. The future she was talking about was already in my rearview mirror. Her confusion curdled into anger, the true colors rising to the surface now that manipulation and minimization had failed. "You're pathetic," she spat, her face contorting. "You're actually doing it. You're running away because you can't handle a confident woman having a life outside of you. You'll never find anyone who puts up with you like I did. You hear me? Never." The words were meant to wound, to shatter my resolve, and make me beg for another chance. They echoed in the quiet street, ugly and desperate. I took a slow breath, not out of need, but as a period to her sentence. I hefted the box in my arms slightly, a physical reminder of my decision. "The future you're talking about," I said, my voice firm and clear, "ended the moment you told me I wasn't invited into my own. Goodbye, Qley." I didn't wait for a response. I turned, placed the box in the passenger seat, and got into the driver's side. I saw her in my periphery, standing frozen on the sidewalk, her mouth agape, the fury and shock warring on her face. I started the engine. The sound was a solid, definitive thing. As I pulled away from the curb, I didn't look back at her. I looked ahead, at the road stretching out before me, clean and empty and full of possibility. The first part of the rest of my life was a quiet street, fading into the night behind me. And it was enough. The first 48 hours were a study in silence. I checked into a bland, anonymous hotel room that smelled of antiseptic and air freshener. It was perfect. There were no memories here, no ghosts. I spent the time on my laptop, scrolling through apartment listings in a different part of the city, and my phone, where the only notifications were from my group chat with friends who knew nothing of the detonation my life had taken. The silence was not empty. It was full of a profound, buzzing peace. It didn't last. The first attempt came on the 3rd day, a text from an unknown number. I knew it was her. The tone was a masterclass in manipulative rewriting of history. "Unknown. Mark, this is crazy. Can we please talk? You're overreacting. It was just coffee. You're throwing away something real over a misunderstanding." I read it. The words, overreacting, misunderstanding, were so predictable they were almost boring. She was trying to frame my decisive action as an emotional overreaction, to make her cruelty the subject and my response the problem. I didn't block the number immediately. I wanted to see the pattern. I deleted the message and went back to comparing floor plans. The second attempt was a voicemail, left later that night. Her voice was different now, stripped of its defensive posture and layered with a trembling, performative desperation. "Mark, it's me. Please pick up." "Okay, fine, I get it. You're mad." It was stupid. Jason was nothing. It meant nothing. He's gone. He left town. It was just, I don't know, ego? I made a mistake. A huge, huge mistake. Please, I need you. I'm so alone in this apartment. It's so quiet. Just call me back. Please. I saved the voicemail. Not out of sentiment, but as evidence. Evidence of the shift from blame to begging. The admission of ego that confirmed everything I'd suspected. She wasn't sorry for her actions. She was sorry for the consequences. The silence of the apartment she'd now inherited was her punishment, not my problem. I deleted the voicemail from my inbox and blocked the new number. The third message was a text, this one venomous. The mask was fully off. The desperation had curdled into pure, unfiltered rage. "Unknown, fine. Be that way. You were always too weak for me anyway. You can't handle a real woman. You'll be back. You'll realize what you lost, and you'll come crawling back." And I'll laugh. I almost smiled. This was the real Qley. The one who had told me I wasn't invited. The one for whom love was a battlefield and respect was a sign of weakness. This message was a gift. It was the final, ironclad confirmation that I had made the only possible choice. I blocked this number, too. Then, the flying monkey arrived. My phone buzzed with a contact I had, Sarah. Qley's most toxic friend. The one who always seemed to be cheering from the sidelines whenever Qley did something brave and selfish. I answered, putting it on speaker as I continued to pack my suitcase in the hotel room. "Mark? Hey, it's Sarah." Her voice was saccharine, laced with false concern. "I know," I said, my tone flat. "Listen, I know what Qley did was messy, but she's a mess. A complete wreck. You have to understand, she's spiraling. She's really, really sorry. A real man would find it in his heart to forgive her. She's learned her lesson." I stopped packing for a moment. "Sarah," I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. "Is there a point to this call?" She sputtered. "The point is that you're being cruel. She made a mistake. Don't you care about her at all?" "That," I stated calmly, "is no longer my concern. Do not contact me again." I ended the call and blocked her number too. The circle was complete. The pleas, the anger, the enlisted allies. It was all a script I was no longer reading from. A final email slipped through a day later, the last gasp before the digital silence became absolute. It was from an account I didn't recognize, but the voice was unmistakably hers. Subject: "I get it now, Mark. I'm writing this because you've blocked me everywhere else. I went to the jeweler today to see. I don't know what I was going to see. They told me you canceled the ring. You got your deposit back the day I left. That's when I finally understood. You weren't mad. You weren't hurt. You were done. You made your decision while I was still at the coffee shop. You were already gone. Jason hasn't answered a single text. He used the catch-up to try to sleep with me one last time for old time's sake, and when I said no, he vanished. He was just using me, and I threw us away for that. For nothing. I get it now. I finally understand what I lost, and I have to live with that." Qley, I read it once. Then I selected the email and clicked delete. I didn't need her understanding. I didn't need her closure. Her unraveling was not my burden to carry. The karma was not dramatic. It was quiet and total. She was alone in the apartment she had made sacred to her own exclusion, haunted by the ghost of a future she had casually incinerated for an ego stroke from a man who saw her as a conquest. She was broke, having relied on my income for the larger bills. She was isolated, her social circle now tainted by the pathetic truth of her situation. And I felt nothing for her but a distant, academic pity, the kind you might feel for a historical figure who made a catastrophically bad decision. It was over. Her consequences were hers to manage. My life was just beginning. 2 months later, I was in a booth at the Grizzly Bear, a pub we'd never visited together, laughing with 2 of my oldest friends. The air was thick with the smell of fried food and beer, and a noisy game of darts was underway in the corner. I was relaxed, my arms slung over the back of the booth, a cold pint in front of me. This was my world now. It was louder, messier, and infinitely more honest. I saw her the moment she walked in. Qley. She was with Sarah, huddled by the door as if bracing against a cold wind. She looked thin, and the dress she wore was one I recognized from a happier time. It now hung on her a little too loosely. Her eyes scanned the room, and when they landed on me, they widened, then filled with a desperate, hungry hope. I looked away, turning back to my friend Mike's story about his disastrous golf lesson. I took a slow sip of my beer. The peace inside me didn't so much as ripple. A shadow fell over the table. I looked up. She was standing there, her hands clenched into nervous fists at her sides. Sarah lingered a few feet behind, a sour look on her face. "Mark. Hi." Her voice was a fragile thing, barely audible over the pub's din. "You look good." I gave a slight, polite nod. The kind you'd give a cashier you didn't know. "Qley, how are you?" The question, so simple and devoid of subtext, seemed to undo her. Her composure cracked. "Not great," she admitted, her words tumbling out in a rushed, shaky confession. "Actually, terrible. I miss you. What I did was the stupidest thing I've ever done." He meant nothing. "You meant everything." She was waiting for it. For me to soften, to say, "I'm sorry you're hurting," or "It's okay," to offer her a lifeline back into my orbit. I said nothing. I just looked at her, my expression neutral, my eyes clear. There was no anger in them, no lingering love, not even the cold satisfaction of being right. There was simply nothing. A vast, quiet expanse of indifference. My silence was more terrifying to her than any shout. She filled it, her voice cracking with emotion. "So that's it. After all that time, after everything we built." I placed my pint glass down on the coaster with a soft, final click. I wasn't talking to the woman I'd loved. I was explaining a basic fact of the universe to a stranger. "That was a different life," I said, my voice calm and even. "I've made my peace. I'm happy in this one." I paused, letting the truth of those words settle in the space between us. She could feel it, the genuine, unshakable contentment that radiated from me. It was the one thing she could never fake, never manipulate, and never take from me. "And you're not in it." For a long moment, she just stood there, completely still. The desperate hope in her eyes extinguished, replaced by a dawning, horrifying understanding. She was looking at a man who was truly, completely free. And her presence, her pain, her very existence, was as relevant to him as a forgotten receipt for a ring that had never been picked up. She was powerless. She was irrelevant. Without another word, she turned and walked away, her shoulders slumped in a defeat that was both total and permanent. Sarah shot me a venomous look before scurrying after her. My friend Leo whistled low. "Dude, who was that?" I picked up my beer again, the faintest genuine smile touching my lips as I turned back to my friends. "No one," I said, and I meant it. No one at all. The conversation moved on. The darts game got louder. The night continued. I was already there, present and alive in my new life. A life she had unwittingly given me the courage to claim. And it was better than anything I had left behind. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.